Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of Solar Opposites. Okay, so confession time. This episode has actually been a thing for a while, but I just wanted to cover it now because it's a little bit closer to when it's actually supposed to go up. But in any case, this episode is very much the Christmas special. It is fun. It is funny. It is fun. It is interesting. And yeah, I just thought I would review it for you guys because well, it's Christmas is around the corner, and I haven't watched it yet, so I thought I would. Yeah, this episode is very much what you would expect from a Christmas special with a Solar Opposites twist to it. It's very interesting and weird. It's very interesting and weird and funny. But in any case, the episode actually opens up with the Solar Opposites actually celebrating Christmas. So yeah, for various reasons, they all like to celebrate Christmas. Jessie likes to put presents likes to give gifts mainly so that she can return them for the money, but store credit. And Corvo likes the idea of the traditions. And long story short, everybody just loves Christmas for different reasons. Yummy does is a little bit more weird in that he likes the fact that they basically kill a tree and bring the corpse into the house, which is I guess if you think about it for a bit. But in case they also point out that the pupa actually does not celebrate Christmas with them, like at all, for undisclosed reasons. The pupa just kind of disappears on Christmas, and then the Solar Opposites have no idea why. All they know is that the pupa is really bringing down their mellow and is by not actually celebrating Christmas with them, and the pupa just responds to that by leaving. At which point we find out why the pupa doesn't actually spend Christmas with them. It actually winds up spending the holidays to church, which is actually kind of what the holiday is or is not. But in any case, it's kind of a less commercialized version of Christmas because it's obviously being run by the church. But while the pupa is there actually praying, he notices a man is crying, and what do we actually find out is that the man, he actually kicked his son out of the house because he was a little bit bi, and he later came to regret the decision, and the pupa merely decides to pull him into a hug, and upon seeing the giant crucifix of Jesus Christ hanging from the ceiling of the church, decides to go on a mission to reunite the father with his son. So that's what he does, and that's the recurring plot throughout the episode. But in any case, to celebrate Christmas as a bit of a tradition, Terry actually winds up picking out a couple of Christmas movies, which is apparently a Solar Opposites tradition at this point, and decides to actually start with Jingle All the Way, which is a very interesting story. It's kind of like a parody satire thing where they make fun of the over commercialization of Christmas, and by having this dad go after this who was played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, but basically he goes after this really rare toy that everybody wants, and nobody can actually get a hold of it because it's incredibly scarce around the holidays, and it's kind of just a little bit of a parody film. But in any case, Corvo decides that the actual better idea would be to not actually watch the movie, but rather to live it. At which point he brings the Solar Opposites upstairs and explains that he invented a new device. As he explains it, and also the other Solar Opposites actually don't remember it. But basically Corvo and the others went to go see Ready Player One, and he decided to make a device based on that where you can just beam people into their favorite things, and he designed it in a way where they actually can go into their favorite Christmas movies. He just literally calls it the Ready Player One device, which Jesse remarks is just a sign that Corvo might be getting lazy with his naming. But in any case, he then proceeds to take the VHS of Jingle All the Way and places it in the machine, which causes them to actually be transported into the movie. Although, as Corvo explains, the movie is designed to only be able to send them into one singular role of the movie. They can't be multiple characters. So unfortunately they all wind up being Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in the movie as well. But in any case, we are then introduced to Jacob, who is who I'm not going to picture because he's literally the character from the movie. Jacob shows up and gets the plot of the movie rolling about how how he wants this rare toy on Christmas, and Terry does a responsible thing and tells him that it would be nearly impossible to actually get it, but Jacob doesn't actually listen and proceeds to tell them that they should go, and proceeds to just kind of go away to his room, claiming that it'll be the best Christmas ever. So at which point Corvo realizes that they're actually going to need to go and get the gift, and then it proceeds to actually transition them into the next scene, which freaks the whole solar opposites out because it's just this big pitch black thing, and also something I should have brought up earlier, but there's this really fun, but when they actually beam it in, there's actually this really funny gag of the old, you all know the FBI warning that's at the front of all the federal law tapes and all that. You guys know what it is. They make a joke about that. It's pretty fun. It's a very funny visual gag. But in any case, they're transported to the store location, and it's at this point where they actually meet a guy who's played by Sinbad in the movie. I don't know who the character is, but his character is that he's obsessed with trying to find the rare toy that they're also after. But at which point the nuance about what the movie actually is winds up being lost in the solar opposites, and they decide that they actually have better things to do, and that the movie kind of sucks. So yeah, they decide to actually bail on the movie almost immediately and leave. At which point they decided it would actually be a better idea to actually go and spend some time apart and actually go find some other things to do for holiday activities, and they did proceed to do that. At which point we get to another vignette of the pupa who is working in a soup kitchen and is asking various patrons there, or rather asking various homeless people who come in and out of there, if they've seen the kid Brandon, and eventually one of the homeless guys actually points out that he has indeed seen him, and tells him that he saw him working at the bus station. So the pupa immediately goes to the bus station to go and investigate. But in case while that's happening, we actually do find out that something is wrong with the solar opposites. As they're going about their business, going about finding some holiday cheer, they kind of get a little bit drained and look extremely tired and extremely melancholic. And the things that they normally would do to celebrate the holidays aren't really helping the situation anymore. They're not particularly happy with how things are going, and immediately they proceed to actually gather in the house once they realize something's wrong. And Corvo is the first person to try to maybe figure it out, pointing out that there's clearly something wrong since they usually love Christmas. And obviously everybody's pointing out about how they can no longer feel joy. Jessie's actually cutting herself with a sharpened candy cane to actually try and make herself feel something. But it's at this point where Corvo actually decides to bring them all up to the ship because he suspects he knows what's wrong. And after the ship being analyzed by the ship, they discover that they've actually lost their Christmas spirit. So as it turns out, the solar opposites have actually lost their Christmas spirit, and Corvo summarizes an idea as to why, which is that they went into Jingle All the Way. Jingle All the Way kind of just sucked all the Christmas spirit out of them because they no longer enjoyed it, and they wound up not really enjoying it because it was such a crappy movie to them. So Corvo decides that the best solution to actually figure out what they could actually do to actually regain their Christmas spirit is to go into other movies that they actually like, and proceed to just go through all the titular roles of those movies. And there's a couple of really funny parodies in there. There's one of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and a couple of other classics, but there's just this big montage, and it turns out to just not work. After jumping through several movies that they actually like and finishing them to completion, they proceed to come back to the ship, and the ship analyzes them again and reveals that their Christmas spirit hasn't gotten any better, which winds up concerning everybody. And obviously Jessie is worried about if they don't get their Christmas spirit back, that Christmas will actually be ruined. Corvo does re-emphasize this sentiment, pointing out that that eventually realizes what is wrong, which is that they actually quit Jingle All the Way early. He surmises that because they didn't actually finish the film, it sapped all that's what sapped all their Christmas spirit, and that in order to fix the problem, they'll have to go back into Jingle All the Way and finish it. So they decide to actually use it. So they decide to actually put the tape back in and declare that they're actually going to go finish Jingle All the Way and make sure that they actually finish the ending and get Jacob his toy. So with that, they then proceed to beam themselves back into Jingle All the Way. only to discover some terrifying, horrific future, where 80 years have since passed since the events of the actual movie, and funnily enough, now Jingle All the Way is just this big dystopian future, and apparently 80 years have passed because according to Corvo, apparently time speeds up in the movie, but they quickly realize that something is wrong, and also there's a bunch of mutant Sinbads that chase after them, so they run off and are actually pulled inside inside a store by some man with one eye, who proceeds to explain to them what's going on. As we find out, because they actually left the movie early, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character kind of just vanishes from the story, which means that Jacob actually grew up without a father, who then proceeded to lament over the fact that his father left him to go get a toy and never came back, and eventually grew to create a multimedia empire that it has a huge vendetta against Christmas, and yeah, you can see where this is going. He basically just becomes an evil villain who successfully destroys Christmas, and then because of that, there's also a dystopian future where everything is terrible. But to this point, where Corvo points out that they need to actually find Jacob and figure out where he is, the man, and also Jessie also remarks that the man has spent that was a very exposition-heavy dialogue if she ever heard one. At which point the man reveals that he was actually stalling for time until his crewmates could actually show up so that they could eat them. At which point several what he calls reavers show up, and he also makes an Arby's reference with Corvo pointing out that there's no way in hell he doesn't know that tagline, but he merely points out that that's just something he says. At which point they chase him out of the building, and the rest of them escape and go back to their suburban neighborhood. At which point they conclude that they'll have to figure out a way that the only way to actually defeat Jingle All the Way, to beat Jingle All the Way and finish it, is to find Jacob and also find the toy he wants, so that they can actually bring it to him and save his Christmas. So with that, they then proceed to actually go and split up on a divergent trip and actually start looking for one. Corvo's the closest one to actually find one, by the way. It's another montage section, but Corvo's the only one who actually manages to find one, albeit it's one being clutched in the hands of a skeleton, so he can't really bring himself to actually pull it free from it, and he kind of gets a little bit sick to his stomach. Meanwhile, the pupa has since continued his mission, actually to go and find the kid. He does eventually find out that the kid is actually taking a bus to go somewhere where he can actually be free, and that he's actually going somewhere to be where he wants to be. So the pupa goes to find Brandon, and he eventually does find the bus, stop, and proceeds to throw himself up against the windshield to get it to stop. Then proceeds to climb on the bus and find Brandon, who Brandon is very much lamenting over the fact that nobody actually wants to sit with him. At which point the pupa actually climbs up into the seat next to him and gives him a big hug, and then shows him a picture of his family and tells him implying that his family is looking for him and is worried. So with that, they then proceed to leave. It's at this point where the rest of the solar opposites still in the Jingle All the Way universe to conclude that they haven't actually been able to find the toy, and point out that they have to figure out a way to actually solve the situation. At which point Terry just kind of makes a big funny rant about how it is technically about all of his different Christmas movies. And when Corvo points out that several of those aren't Christmas movies, Terry just points out that they technically are, because they're set on Christmas, and that is just kind of a thing. Like, technically speaking, if your film is set on Christmas, it's a Christmas movie. Let's be perfectly honest. That is just a thing. If your movie is set on Christmas, it's a Christmas movie. But in any case, after hearing that, Corvo decides that they actually do need to that it may actually still be a Christmas, that they can actually still save Christmas, and that while they didn't find the toy, all they have to do is go to Jacob and apologize for abandoning him. and go find out where his empire is. And they kind of have no time to do it because, as we find out, there is a big parade that happens every year, 15 minutes before Christmas, 15 more before Christmas is over, which the solar opposites remarked earlier was a very specific time, but then we find out why. It said that means that there's only 15 minutes till Christmas is over. So they decided, but in order to actually go and find Jacob and find the giant penthouse tower that he's hiding in, they decide to actually infiltrate the parade by using a bunch of Santa heads on pikes that are just littered all over the place, so to actually disguise themselves, and they later admit that it doesn't really make them all that comfortable. But the one-eyed man from earlier actually recognizes them, and though Terry tries to dissuade him that they're indeed not the same people, the man recognizes them anyway, and then proceeds to summon his buddies again. This time quoting the line from the very popular line from Wendy's, which Corvo points out it's obvious now that he does indeed know what these taglines are, considering that that one's one of the more popular ones. But in any case, they then get into a chase where they eventually do evade the Reavers and wind up in an alleyway where they then proceed to take the decapitated Santa heads off themselves. Terry actually winds up spitting up some of it because he actually winds up getting some brain in his mouth. At which point they realize they actually have found the tower where Jacob is holed up, and conclude that in order to save him, they'll need to infiltrate the tower and actually apologize to him. At which point Yumilak pulls out a pair of X-ray glasses, which he then uses to analyze all the security and figure out who's where. And they do point out that it's very heavily armed and that they'll need to go in and deal with it, but Corvo really points out that it feels like they may have the odds stacked against them, but Jesse merely just pulls out 2 knives and remarks that all that doesn't really matter because they're the solar opposites and they're going to get in there and deals with some Christmas cheer and give the kids some Christmas cheer regardless of whether he wants it or not. So with that, they then proceed to actually weapon up. Terry's the only one without a weapon, but as we find out, he as a bit of a Christmas surprise for Corvo, he was actually learning one-hit death punches, which Corvo actually is very happy about, and they actually do share a kiss over it. But in any case, once they all weapon up, they then proceed to get ready to infiltrate the giant tower and climb their way up. Meanwhile, the pupa has since brought Brandon back to church, where he remarks that he doesn't feel like he belongs there because obviously nobody wants him. But when his father actually sees him and stops him, the two actually embrace, and Brandon then proceed. Brandon's father then proceeds to point out that he was wrong and that what he did was a very stupid thing and that he just wants his son to come back home. So he and his son actually wind up embracing and also thanking the pupa for helping them, and the pupa actually locks eyes with the giant Jesus on the crucifix, which is revealed to sort of be sentient, kind of. It kind of locks eyes with the pupa and then winks at him for doing a job well done. At which point the pupa is actually invited back to their house for Thanksgiving dinner, or rather for Christmas dinner. But in any case, they then proceed. But in any case, the group then proceeds to actually continue infiltrating the tower. It's actually another montage segment where they're actually just killing karate chopping Santas, what is it, Sinbad mutants, and a couple of other mutated things that they need to face off against, and it's just this really funny thing where they're just using all of their skills to actually just kind of climb the tower so that they can get to the CEO office. And also, while the pupa is doing that, he actually is invited to Christmas dinner, and Brandon's father makes a big speech about how he was sorry about what he did to his son. He remarks that he feels like now that the pupa has shown him the error of his ways, and now that their family is whole again, he hopes that he can actually one day repay the favor. At which point, the pupa actually whispers in his ear, and it's implied that he's asking for the Harry Potter whistle again, and it is outright confirmed at the end of the episode. But yeah, it's implied that he's asking about the Harry Potter whistle and about how he's locked in a childproof cabinet. So, in any case, they then proceed. But in any case, with that, the solar opposites then proceed to arrive at Jacob's penthouse, where it's revealed that Jacob is now an old man and possibly a cyborg who has been living in there for 80 years. And has now since also not only created the Sinbad clones himself in a testing tube, but has also gathered up every single one of the toys that he wanted when he was earlier, and has made a throne out of them. It's at this point where they realize that they actually do need to apologize to actually undo everything that's happened. So Corvo was the first one to apologize, pointing out that they were sorry that they abandoned them and never got him the toy that he wanted. But he merely responds that it was actually too late, 80 years. That he's actually 80 years too late, and then he's moved on from that. And refuses to actually accept their apology, and refuses to actually let them apologize for everything they've done to him and his downfall into madness. With them realizing that now, with Jesse eventually getting sick of it and pointing out that they came all the way there just to apologize to him, the least he can do is actually accept it. But he merely tells them to, and I quote, "eat shit." Which causes them to become annoyed mainly because they realize they only have 1 minute till Christmas, and they are not, or then they will be unable to actually solve the conflict of the movie. But it is actually at this point where Jesse actually figures out there's actually a loophole, which is that the movie is now no longer about a dad getting a hard to find gift for his son, but rather his son, who has become this giant evil villain overlord, and is now the main antagonist of the film. And realizing that she can now solve the problem by actually beating up the main antagonist, proceeds to walk up to the now elderly Jacob, and kick the shit out of him, which is revealed to actually fix her Christmas spirit, and she encourages the other solar opposites to join in. So they do that. They beat up an old man, which is uncomfortable. But they wind up beating up an old man, which winds up fixing everything and winds up restoring both their Christmas spirit, and also fixes the dystopian future that they've actually found themselves trapped in. So with that, they actually wind up not only saving the world, but also their Christmas spirit. At which point they celebrate about how they feel good again. But it's at this point where the credits start rolling as a visual thing, and Corvo tells them to actually sit down and watch the credits, since they realized what happened last time they would bail, and just to be on the safe side, they decided to actually watch the credits. And then once the credits scroll, they actually get up and get ready to leave again. But then another set of credits starts scrolling, so they decide to sit down again, much to their annoyance. But in any case, with that, they actually wind up solving their problem of Jingle All the Way shenanigans, and decide that they're never actually going to watch Jingle All the Way ever again, which is really funny. But in any case, with that, they actually have regained their Christmas spirit and are just happy that the whole ordeal is over. And then the pupa walks out with his Harry Potter whistle and annoys the hell out of all of them, with them becoming annoyed, with Terry and Corvo actually fighting over each other about how Terry was supposed to have put it in the childproof cabinet, with Terry remarking that he did. And they also make a subtle thing about how maybe the pupa is actually getting help to actually get the whistle again, but which is indeed what's happening. But then the episode actually ends with the rest of the solar opposites actually leaving to avoid the pupa's flute playing, and the pupa merely wishing everybody a happy Christmas. So yeah, obviously this Christmas special is very nutty and weird. There's a lot of fun to be had with this one, because it's mainly just Corvo, Terry, and Terry Yumulak, and Jesse just jumping through all of the various different Christmas specials you probably watched when you were a kid, and also making their own parodies of them, which is really funny. And also then it goes completely off the rails at the end when it goes full solar opposite shenanigans. But and then there's also the B plot with the pupa where it helps fix a family in exchange for the Harry Potter whistle back. But yeah, I just like this Christmas special because it was just really funny, and I did like the fact that they just kind of did some low-key parodies of everything. But so yeah, there's not much else I can say about that. It's a really fun special. If you want to go see it, it's on Hulu. But in any case, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks, and I'm always saying thanks. So just yeah, be sure to go check those out. Link is down in the description. And also be sure to check out, and if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked on the end screen. The top video is the most recent one. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to try something new, or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!